Hi, folks, and thanks for joining us this evening. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Toby, would you give us a roll call, please?
Tom Roche, yeah. Anita Tripp. Todd Tyler.
Here.
Joe Carroll.
Here.
Chris Miles.
Here.
Ella Collins. James Donahue. Christina Durkee.
Christina's here.
Yeah, and Dan Shields.
Here.
So just want to make sure Ella was on the finance committee. Just looking to see if she's over in the participant section. Not yet.
No.
Okay.
Dan, do you have the chat or the thing open where they can talk and?
It is open right now.
Okay.
We'll give it a minute or two. Tom, do you want to call?
Ella? Or you just want to?
No, for community comments.
Yeah. So
I'm here. I'm sorry. My internet just went out. My apologies.
Okay.
We got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I see. Toby, you have it?
Yes, Carrie Traskus, like to comment.
Okay. Ms. Traskus, you have the floor.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I happened to see on the agenda that there's going to be discussion and then followed by a vote later regarding the football merger, and it says a vote with South Glens Falls. I just wanted to see if maybe when there was discussion, I'd kind of like to hear what the decision-making process which led you here, because I know I had heard about it like on I don't know, Post-Star, and then I had reached out to someone I'm familiar with involved in this and asked like what was going on. It sounded like there was a committee meeting and there were some options on the table. I was excited to hear about, I was curious about Schuylerville. Seems like they carry perhaps a smaller roster than South Glens Falls would. So as well as they're of similar class as we are. So I'm kind of, as you discussed, you don't have to answer it right now, but I'm just interested what led to that decision to go with South Glens Falls, because to me, just looking at it would seem like somewhere like South Glens Falls might be a nice fit.
Did you say somewhere like South Glens Falls might be?
I'm sorry, Schuylerville. I keep transposing those names. Schuylerville. Okay. It seems, gotcha. Similar drive time, smaller roster size, and a similar class that we're used to playing. So I don't know all the details, so I was just kind of curious what the decision making was there.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have a discussion about that, and we have had discussions about that. When you say smaller roster size, what do you mean? I'm just curious to know what your thought process is to Schuylerville being a good fit for us. I understand, they're right down Route 4 and we're on Route 4, but other than that, like smaller roster size, is that better or not so good for additional kids going to there?
So I would think on a football team, like you might have anyone saying that they'll take on any kids, but in terms of football, they usually carry like a large. They want as many players as they can get. I mean, anyone can correct me if I'm wrong. So it seems like perhaps our kids might get more playing time. with Schuylerville versus, and I don't know the number, so I would assume that the committee found these numbers out in terms of their rosters they carry. But to me, to me, a smaller, like if you had a bench of 20, you'd have more time playing. Our kids would have more time playing than a bench of 40.
Maybe there's some rationale there. Absolutely. So that's what you thought Schuylerville might be a better fit. That's why you're saying that. Okay.
And I heard that they were welcome to having us as well. And I know there might be other options on the table, but like someone like Granville, they would be farther away. So I'm just kind of curious what the thought process was.
Yeah, we can discuss that. I imagine we'll be discussing that later in the day, unless you think it's appropriate. I'll go to Dan since you got the agenda. I mean, is it appropriate to discuss it now, or should we wait until the agenda comes out? You're muted. You're muted, Dan. You're good.
Yep. So it's on the agenda. I'm popping it up right now. So it's under discussion.
Incoming call. Press Uconnect phone button to answer.
So I would say we discuss that when we get to discussion, if possible, the board can have a discussion at that time.
We
Phone call
appreciate your comment, Ms. Trasketh, and we definitely will be discussing it.
Thank you.
Any further community comments about, Toby, or anything in the chat?
Nothing in the chat
Okay.
other than Carrie.
We will have another community comment at the end, so as is typical. All right, so we have a roll call. Next up is our favorite portion of the meeting, and that is recognition of successes. And Dan, please lead us to that.
Yep, absolutely. So a couple of students tonight. I would say two, a group and then an individual, all part of a specific event, and it's an important event, especially for school districts this year. Certainly been important for our school district every single year. But the legislative breakfast, where our local legislators normally come together at one of the local Boces sites, and there is a breakfast, and there are speakers, and there are awards given, and students do get to introduce themselves and talk about the programs up at Boces. Because of COVID, that did not occur normally this year, as most things that we're working through in education are not occurring the same way as normal here. But we wanted to recognize some students who played a part in that, and their part was different this year. Normally there'd be a lot of CTE culinary students and hospitality students who would be seating legislators, getting them the correct table, serving them breakfast and taking the dishes and things afterwards. And they're not getting a lot of opportunities to do any of those types of things this year because of COVID. A lot of the events they would normally be working on with their teachers and their classmates are not occurring. So what Boces did this year is they had the culinary and hospitality students make and box baked goods and deliver them to various legislators' offices so they could have something that morning for our online meeting, me being one of those people as well. So I definitely had a few very delicious muffins and some very delicious, some sort of banana bread or some sort of bread, cranberry bread. So I made out pretty well in this. And the students had different levels of involvement, but I wanted to let everybody know that the teacher reached out from CTE and gave us a list of students. But when Mr. Galarno was calling and talking with people, like, well, I don't think they helped to bake that stuff. Well, the teacher, said that not everybody was able to be part of the baking because they have virtual students up at Boces as well. But through the coursework they were doing, they also should be recognized for what went on that day at the legislative breakfast. So I want to recognize those students. Or Tom, do you want to read the names, or do you want me to read the names?
Well, you can read the names, Dan. It's fine. They'll get certificates, right? Great.
Absolutely. So I'm hoping you can see. Not the best way to show you, but for certain we have certificates for each one of the students who will be recognized here this evening, and many of them may have jumped on So if any of them care to, once I get done announcing them all, they can jump on and make a comment if they'd like, and we'll go from there. But I want to thank them all. I had a great breakfast that day. I did not share with Tom, who attended remotely as well. And I'll say a little bit more about the second recognition here in a minute. So, recognition of success for contributing to the success of the annual Wishwe Boces Legislative Breakfast for their involvement in CTE Culinary and Hospitality Program, Alexander Denton. Monet Salazar, Isaac Virtue, and Angel Winchell. So congratulations to those students, and thank you for whatever you had to do with those delectable treats that day, and all the ones that our legislators and other folks that were there at the legislative breakfast remotely this year were able to enjoy.
Yeah, I think a couple of those students have been in that program for a while. I believe I remember Isaac last year when we went to the breakfast, and I think Monet was there. So I think a couple of them are in that program for more than 1 year, which is great.
So any of those students have any interest in unmuting and making a comment about the program or your involvement in anything, you're okay to do so. And if you're not comfortable doing so, that's fine as well.
Great job to those kids. It's a great program.
And then the second recognition tonight is for our senior, Heather Miller. She was chosen to be on the student panel. So that was new this year because we were not giving out business awards through the advocacy committee this year. We decided to do a student panel because our legislators want to hear from students, and that's fantastic. So Heather Miller, again, senior here at Fort Edward, she was chosen to be one of 5 students to represent the almost 38,000 students in our Boces area in the component schools to be on that call. There was 2 seniors, a 6th grader, a 3rd grader, and a 10th grader, I believe, on there. So, and they had to field some questions from me during that portion of the program, and then they had to take some questions directly from the legislators. So congratulations to Heather. She did a good job. I posed every question to her first, so she was in the hot seat very quickly, and she did a very nice job. Heather, we have a certificate for you as well. And Heather, if you're out there and want to make a comment about the program or your involvement in it, please feel free to do so. And if you don't want to, that's okay as well.
I didn't see her on the participant list, but she really represented us so well. And I know Carrie was asking a lot of questions. A lot of legislators were asking questions. What do they need? What if they had a wish list? What would they like? Dan had some really great questions prepared. He emceed the whole thing, and she really did a fantastic job representing us. Actually, I spoke with Carrie, and she was very proud of the whole situation. All the legislators really appreciated having that time directly with students to understand where they were, and the students range from, I think the youngest was 4th grade, correct? Dan?
It was 3rd or 4th. I can't remember. That young man from Queensbury.
Up until seniors, and really got a great look at what these guys are thinking about how COVID is affecting them, and just some overall really great questions. So congratulations to Heather. She did a fantastic job. And you did a great job too, Dan, running that thing. So good job.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So those are our recognitions of successes. We'll make sure that students get those. You are going to hear a little bit later from Mr. Garner about another group of kids, great young people, and we'll be recognizing them at our next board meeting, but you're definitely going to hear about them just a little bit tonight.
Great.
No presentations, so moving down to the reports. Finance Committee.
Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about that, Dan. Finance Committee met this evening. One of our biggest topics this evening was expenditures and some things we have to take a look at. As everyone here knows, we had quite the budget gap last year, and because our budget didn't pass, we had to cut a lot of stuff. Well, we want to put some of that stuff back because we need to. And it's always hard once you lose something to get it back, but Dane's going to pull up a sheet that's going to show everyone where our class sizes are right now, what we expect them to be, And while we had to increase our class size last year due to the unfortunate cuts we had to make, we're hoping that folks see the need for what we're recommending as far as starting to add some staff back, so these kids get, a great education and have, it's not 40 kids running around in a classroom, that we're able to give them the right amount of instruction. So Dan's going to pull up a sheet.
Are you able to see the spreadsheet with the yellow and the red on it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Chris says yes. So I can push it up just a little bit more. So the Finance Committee meeting tonight, one of the pieces of information I shared was just our class sizes overall. And what the full board, the committee asked me to share with the full board is that we've got something we've got to have a conversation about, and it's got to be soon. It's going to be tonight. Hopefully we can get some information from the board on direction and where you want to go. So we need to pay particularly close attention to the numbers under total students for the grade levels. And over here, I put under current sections. You can see where in the elementary we only have one section. In the high school, it's a little bit more difficult, although there are specific grade levels. But the number of teachers, as those students move up a grade level, are going to expose some areas where we're going to be short on staff based on the numbers that we have. And last year, the board had a conversation, I think in a full meeting as well as in the Finance Committee, about the maximum class size they were comfortable with. And we use that to determine reductions in force and combining of classrooms for this year. So if you take a look, for example, I put this yellow number 1 next to kindergarten. We have one section of kindergarten this year. We did not have pre-K, so we don't have a good feel for how many kindergartners we'll have next year. What I would say is 25 kindergartners in one classroom is not what has happened historically here at Fort Edward. There's not 20. I don't believe there's 25 in there right now. I think there may still be a couple that are remote, but these numbers of 25 and then the 30s that you see, it's only working this year because we have a lot of students who are remote. We have about 400, just over 400 students. I think it's 413 today. I have to do the report every day. And 128 of them are remote, choosing to be remote for whatever reason. If all those elementary students chose to come back, that's what you'd see in one section of 4th grade. You'd see all 30 in there. And we're actually close to that. I don't have the exact number to share. But I don't think that's what the board had planned as we were looking at this. And 5th grade, the full 5th grade is 32, and we have one section right now. So all the students that attend here in person are all in one classroom. And as you move into the upper grades, you can see this 37, 31, 28, 27. We've got some classrooms, some grade levels where there's only one section. I don't think the board's intention was for a long-term solution to be that there's 31 kids in, say, an 8th grade English class next school year. And that would be concerning, I think, to many of us. We did what we had to do last year. We need to have a conversation on where you want to be. And here is why we need to have the conversation, because there's a cost associated with this. If we're going to make a change, there's a cost associated, and we all know that our budget has been tight. The reductions caused us to have to make a lot of reductions in force and really a lot of cuts last year to things that are near and dear to our students and to our community. So let me share another one really quickly. And it's going to have some numbers for the full board. And I realize some of you were in the Finance Committee, so I won't belabor it. But I'll provide you with kind of my initial recommendations on things and talk about the colors on here. Can you see that new sheet now?
Yes.
Okay. So last year, pre-K was something that the board had to make a very tough decision on. because the state had actually told us they were not going to provide, they're going to reduce the grant funding by 20%. They sent us a letter exactly telling us that. Now they've told us this month that they're not going to reduce any of those grants. But at that time, we had to make the decision to not have pre-K. So if we wanted to have pre-K back, I put it in that blue or teal color because I think that's totally up to the board. Certainly, our young people in Fort Edward could use pre-K. It's a very beneficial program for young students, but it's not required, and we don't have it right now. So it's in blue. Totally up to the board. You can see the associated costs with it all the way over to the right-hand column. So you have to have a teacher and you have to have a support staff member in there, and you can see the costs, including salary, health insurance, FICA, med, and retirement costs. And these are estimated costs. The health insurance number is a hard and fast number. That's for a family plan, and the numbers for the other plans are down at the bottom. But we wanted the budget with the highest health insurance because we want it. If an employee comes in with a family, we have to provide that benefit to them. Under kindergarten, I put it in yellow. Maybe 25 is okay in kindergarten. I don't think it was the long-term plan for the board. I don't think it's definitely not been the historical number of students in a kindergarten class here. The teacher and support staff person who are working in there every day are doing a great job and providing, I think, the best possible environment for our children based on the barriers and the obstacles and challenges that we're all faced with during COVID and social distancing, and only having one section in a school that's had two sections probably forever. So I put that in yellow. In red, I put 4th and 5th grade. The 30s that we're talking about coming up from the lower grades that are already in two sections. We're talking about anywhere from 32 to 34, depending on grade level, as they come up the next year or two. Putting 30 plus 5th grade students in a classroom with one teacher is not the best scenario for anybody involved. Again, the people we have working here are doing a great job, but I think the board really has to think long and hard about adding a section back there. Move into the orange. Again, as we move into that middle and high school, we've got two sections of 6th grade. Those students are going to move up to 7th. And last year we reduced English, social studies, and math by one teacher per area. And we've been able to get through this year, again, because we've got a good portion of our middle and high school students attending remotely. But if all those students were to come back, and I don't know if they'll all be back for the beginning of next year, but we certainly want to plan for them to be back in the classroom because we all know that's the best place for them. So I conservatively put in that you would want to have a 0.5 in each of those areas because right now we're working at capacity for our teachers, and then beyond capacity for several. They are teaching an extra class outside of their normal contractual duties based on a clause in the teacher's contract. So we did that last year. We said we could make it work because we could just add a class to a few people, and those people agreed to do so to make it so we could have the appropriate number of sections so that our high school counselor could schedule those students. As those numbers come up, unless we're talking about, or the board's committing to having 30 students or 32 or 33 students in a section of ELA, math, or social studies, we've got to have a conversation about adding those positions. And again, I showed you a 0.5 salary. These are based off of step 1. The finance committee said maybe we should be basing that off of step 5 to be more realistic as we're hiring people, just so we've got enough money budgeted as opposed to saying, oh, we're a little bit short. And then
Dan,
there's
before you move on to that portion.
Yep.
I just want to hit home on what you're saying. So the salaries may be a little underestimated, but they might be on the target too. The health insurance is the highest end. So I don't know that everyone we hire is going to need a family plan. So there may be an overestimation in the health insurance where there may be an under in the salary, but it may be a wash as well. So But the important part of this section is the pre-K stuff we talked about last year. We found out that they weren't going to give us the aid for it. We rely on the aid to run pre-K. Based on the numbers that Dan's projecting and the aid that we would get for it, it's probably going to cost us a couple of thousand. It may cost up to 10,000 depending on the teacher salary that comes in. But we have to make the decision, since now we know we're getting the aid. Do we apply that aid and have the program, even knowing it might cost us 10,000 in budget, or do we not have pre-K? One of the things, if you recall, last year we spoke about, is there interest? We have enough kids. I think we needed 18 in order to get the aid. Am I correct on that, Dan?
Yeah, so our aid is capped at a certain number of students. I don't have it committed to memory or right here in front of me, but the amount of aid that we're allowed for pre-K is based on a predetermined number of students. And so we were trying to get to a certain number last year.
I think it was 18.
Right.
Hey, Dan, I'm just curious about when we're looking at like the grade 5, grade 4. I know that we had a lot of cuts, and I was wondering about like how many would be callbacks, so we would actually probably know exactly how much those would cost.
Yep. So great question. So I will tell you that I feel pretty confident that the first person I have to call back would be a yes. After that, I'm not so certain, because two of the next folks on the callback list have received full-time jobs in another school district. And another person, the third one on the callback list for I'm talking about elementary right now, has been offered a few jobs and has decided to be the teacher for her own children at home, because their children are on the child is on remote. So yes, I could give that. So I would say the first one back is a $60,000 teacher. There so abouts, based on my memory without looking it up. After that, the rest of the people were in the first 3 to 4 years of the step schedule in our teacher's contract, based on my quick memory. And if I go to the ELA math and social studies, the ELA and social studies teachers were in their first 3 years here at Fort Edward. The math position was cut through a retirement that we didn't replace, so there's nobody on a callback for that position. But you're right, some of those I could get closer on. If you decide you're going to do it, this exercise was to just show some numbers to folks when we're talking about budgeting and trying to keep things as close to what we had last year, so we can put something out that our community will be able to support, knowing that if we need to provide some of these things as basic and essential needs for our children and students here at Fort Edward, that they become part of the conversation pretty early for everybody. I'm going to slide down. There's some support staff that's required. And the first one with the aides for specific students, I put 2+1 because 2 of those people are already here working with students. They were students who started the school year a little bit late, or they were here on a trial basis. And now they're here, and it looks like they're going to be here this year and next year as well. So really, those first 2 and the 2+1 are already here. There's no choice in that matter for the board. And the third one, the +1, is because our special education folks met with Mr. Galarno about 2 weeks ago, and they're looking at trying to provide the most appropriate placements for children. And it looks like some of those could involve students moving from out-of-district placements at privates to out-of-district placements at Boces, and some coming back to classrooms here in our building. But that's not finalized yet, so I did my best to project. That conversation is going to be more in-depth with dollar amounts attached this week. And for the assistants, you can see 0 + 4. So right now, the 0 is for this year. We've got what we need for assistants in our budget this year. So when Charlene rolls the budget, the right number of people are included there. The +4 is a projection for the need to bring students back into our building from out-of-district public and private placements. So that's a big estimate, but it's fair to say that's based on a conversation that Mr. Galarno and I have had. And I also showed the savings through one confirmed retirement that the board will accept tonight, I believe. And the part about retirements that's important to remember is that when that individual leaves, you don't save the health insurance cost because folks take their health insurance into retirement with them most of them at the same contribution level as when they were an active employee. So you can see the number in the red box, 541, 311. That's with me estimating the highest health insurance on all and the starting salary on all. So like Tom said, we could get more exact with that, but just wanted to have a number that people could take a look at. And at the bottom, it just shows you what I was using for salaries. And it shows you that a family insurance is $17,841, and those are real numbers. A two-person is $11,997, and a one-person is $6,152. So if a person only needs individual insurance, I'm over by $11,000 on my estimate.
Right. So, and the important thing to know about this list here, and it's important for the finance committee, it's important for the entire board to know this because, as you know, the committees make recommendations, the boards makes decisions. This is not a wish list. This is not, hey, if you want to add some stuff back, this be great. This is we need this stuff. We need this just to bring it back up to what the teachers need, what the kids need, what we need to give them proper instruction. So when you look at this list, it's kind of hard pressed to say, well, let's pick this and let's pick this and let's pick that. There's nothing on here that's fluff. The only thing that would be anywhere close to something that in my estimation isn't something that we necessarily absolutely need would be the pre-K. But if we're being funded for that and it's only going to cost us 10 grand, and I don't want to say only as if it's a small number, but if it's going to cost us 10 grand, gosh, we can give 18 to 20 kids or whatever the number is a pre-K, which I think we need as well. So don't look at this list as if I had my ability, I'd check this, this, and this. It's really a needs list to get some semblance back of what we had in 2019 and we lost in 2020. So that was pretty much the discussion in the finance committee. So we kind of do need some direction. It's not necessarily a vote or anything like that at this point, but we do need some direction on whether this is a number that we are going to include in our budgeting as something we need. Remember, we have to go out to the community and say, hey, we need X amount more dollars than last year. This is not the full amount of what we need. As you guys all know, other things cost more money this year than they did in 2019, COVID notwithstanding. Other things just go up as well. So when you talk in terms of budget gap, this is not the complete gap. And again, we're adding this, and we all know it's tougher to add stuff after you take it away. That's why it was so hard to lose it last year. But so just anyone want to talk? I'm rambling on here, but we just need
I agree. I agree that we need these positions because the class sizes, looking at those and seeing how they're going to roll up year after year, those are ridiculous numbers to try to educate those kids the best we can. 30 plus kids in the classroom and meet their needs is just crazy. So definitely the staffing has to be there.
I just have a question on the 7 through 12. I was just wondering, is that teachers are teaching, too many periods per day, or are the class sizes too full of students? What the real ELA, math, and social studies 7 to 12 issue is? I guess I was just a little confused on that.
Yep. So it's both pieces, Ella. So right now we have overscheduled some of our teachers.
Okay.
And we're able to do that as long as the teacher and the district can come to an agreement. There's a spot in their contract, and there's minimal compensation for that. When I say minimal, I mean I've seen several contracts, and I want to tell you that whatever, it's fortunate that piece is in the teacher's contract for certain. The other piece is when you roll them forward, and you take the 30 something from a certain grade level into the next, where there was only, let's say there was 27 in 10th grade, and now next year you put 35. Well, did we get through 27 this year in 10th grade because 9 of them are home doing remote instruction? Yes, we absolutely did. next year, even if you brought that 27 back, we'd be struggling. But certainly if you bring that 32 to the next grade level, that's what's sitting in, the third floor classroom of a specific math teacher's class or of a specific social studies class. And we've got some classrooms, we'd move people around, obviously, but we certainly have some classrooms that you could never even fit 32 in.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Anyone else want to talk about any questions on?
Yeah, I'll add Tom to that. First of all, I think in Fort Edward, based on what we're doing here with the whole merger study, we do take pride in the smaller class sizes here at Fort Edward. Looking at Southlands Falls, Queensbury, Bethlehem, Shen, whatever, I don't believe that they have class sizes above 30. So it's not even that we're looking at that. We would actually have class sizes, I believe, and Dan could actually probably add to that, larger than even the larger districts around us. Okay, so no one, and we have a lot of educators that are on the board, thankfully, is no one would disagree that students benefit academically as well as emotionally with the smaller class sizes. It's very difficult to catch students up that are falling behind as they're moving through the system. So if we lose them in the elementary, and that's what we're really targeting right here with the 4th and 5th grade level, we could lose them for good. We've always talked about things in terms of our measurements that we currently have, looking at attendance rates and state test scores and all that. All the way through, we would like to improve on all those things. And these class sizes are not doing it. But I think instruction does have to be delivered to meet the new needs of all students' needs. And this takes time. And and again, teachers have to differentiate instruction. You can't do that with 30 kids. I find it one of the things that I value right now is the smaller class sizes that I'm dealing with in front of me, even though, there's, still have, 24, 25, 26 sometimes in my class. So I fully support that. And I think that we've discussed this before. I know that we've gone back and forth with some board members, but I'll let everybody say their piece. But I would totally support putting that out there and let the community vote on it. But I think it's needed.
Yeah, and I'll agree with both Todd and Christina. Plus, you also need to throw in the fact that we've now spent almost an entire school year dealing with COVID and the learning gaps that we know are taking place right now. They're only going to be exacerbated as the time goes through. So we need to not have 30 plus kids in a classroom. Just in a normal school year, that shouldn't happen, let alone what we've been dealing with for the last 11 plus months now. So that's my piece.
Well, I'm glad to hear all that stuff. And anyone else wants to comment, please feel free. But it's important to know as we go into our finance committees. Joe, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so I agree with what everybody else had kind of said about the needs of what we have. It sounds to me like if we had to go into the year we're in now and COVID didn't exist and we were doing this regularly, we wouldn't have what is needed to even run what we would need in the school now. So that's why that's needed. I think it sounds like the finance committee, that's the recommendation, which makes sense. The only question I think I would have would be, obviously, if this is a gap of the 541 and change, and then there's still more gap, what is that going to look like on a whole? And then how are we going to get that, put out to voters to get that message out to, hit home? That's actually what's needed. That's kind of my question on that.
Yeah, and you're absolutely, that's kind of segueing into what this is all about. So our next finance committee meeting is the 23rd of February. And that's where we're kind of going to see some numbers that let us know what it's going to look like when we go out to the public as far as increases. We'll have close information. March 1st, we have to have the tax cap information, but it's soft. It's not perm. So we can change it, but we do have to have some pretty good numbers by that meeting. So if we give direction for Dan to include this in the budgeting, we'll get other numbers. Folks, just be prepared to talk about it out in the public and on these meetings, having this discussion. This is no longer any semblance of, hey, we just want to add. It's not that we've ever done that. We run lean all the time, but this is almost as dire as it gets. If we go into next year with these numbers and a couple other kids come into the district, and we don't have the budget money to do this, you're talking about severely escalated numbers inside classrooms, and that's not what we want to offer our kids. So we just have to talk to the public and educate the public. I think we did a decent job last year. I think we have to focus on the needs here and why they're absolutely dire. So I think that's one part of it. So
I just have a quick question, and Dan, I don't know if you can answer, or Charlene, or has there been any talk about increase in the like foundation aid or anything like that, with new administration coming in, relief bills happening, or anything like that? Has there been any positive news coming as far as money wise?
The positive news, and I'll speak to this, we learned this in finance committee, is the positive news is the 20% reduction that we were expecting to get this year, we're getting back. So any payment that was 20% was taken out of, supposedly we're getting a check written for all that. And in the future aid for this year will not have that 20% reduction. So as terms of this year goes, that's good news. Charlene or Dan, you can talk about next year.
You want it, Charlene? You want me to take it?
Sure. There's a lot of information out there right now regarding the executive budget. And so I guess the governor is pretty much presenting something very similar to last year. The foundation aid, he has left flat. This is the third year in a row, so that's not good news. The federal government did pass aid for the school districts in December, and so the governor is including that to pretty much replace the CARES Act money that he used last year to balance the budget. So all the CARES Act funding now, that money that was taken out and put back in, that has been replaced. But again, that just leaves us flat. And the money from the federal government that was passed in December, he is now using to balance the budget again. So now we are seeing cuts again, only he has framed it a little differently. And that will be federal funding again that he is using to balance the school budget. But he is still looking for more money from the federal government to balance the state budget. So we still have hanging over our head need for more money from the federal government to avoid any cuts to state aid next year. So that's where we're at the moment. So no increases in revenue from the state. And he's also proposing consolidating a lot of the aid, such as the Boces aid and the transportation aid, which are not good things. So I suggest that anybody on this call, and all taxpayers, I can't call for action, but the more people know and read and study the executive budget, the more they can see that schools need more. We need more consistency, more transparency. We need an increase in our foundation aid. We need our foundation aid to not be restricted. So there's just many, many, many things out there, and we put quite a bit of stuff in the board, and maybe Dan can get some information out to the parents and the taxpayers too, about some of the things that we can do and some of the things that might be positive or negative in the governor's budget. Of course, they are meeting in Albany, and they will continue to meet until April 1st before we get the legislative budget, which will tell us, what our true aid for next year will be. So not really a whole lot of good news, not really a whole lot of more money. Unfortunately.
I have to say thanks for that information, even though it's a bummer, but thank you for
I
that
know, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Again, that's a draft, right? So who knows, things might change, but we'll see. Any other comments on the finance committee stuff? So I guess it sounds to me like most folks most of the board members are in agreement that we do have to include those numbers. And of course, Dan will get them more pointed, but it'll fluctuate maybe $60,000, $80,000 either way, maybe. But are we all in favor? And again, it's not a vote situation. It's just maybe a consensus. It sounds like we're in favor of including that stuff, right?
Yes, and Joe had a great point. I mean, it comes down to looking at the end result in terms of what percentage you're looking at. I know we've talked about 1% of 60,000. So again, you have to look at how it works in with the entire budget. But yeah, definitely.
Good enough. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So next up, do we have any meetings, Dan? Any committees? I'm sorry, any committees that have to take place or anything to review? I know policy committee met, right?
Yeah. So we met. I think we met prior to the last meeting, though, didn't we?
Oh, you know what? I think you're correct. Yes.
Yeah. So Toby's got a small pile of policies that she and I talked about today that we're gonna get out to the policy committee, hopefully next week or the week after next, and they'd be on your board agenda for the March 8th meeting for first reading if they are new policies, and one reading if they are revisions of current policies. So that's where we're at. Once that list goes out, if the board wants to have a policy committee meeting about those, we absolutely can and should.
Okay. Any other committees that we need to schedule at this point, or we'll just as needed?
So we'll be as needed. I suspect that we'll need to have a negotiations committee meeting at some time between now and the next board meeting, if not shortly after the next board meeting, but I'm waiting on some more information.
Gotcha.
Dan, I don't know if we said this in our last meeting, and just cut me off if we did, but when we spoke about the policy, when we went into the policy meeting, we did describe that from this point on that any Erie 1, Boces policy, pulse, any regulation that comes out, that's going to be dropped into a folder in our Board of Education drive for us to look at as a committee. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if you were to have several screens like me, you could go into your board shared drive, and you could go in there, and you'll see that the policy post that came out last week.
I do see that, Dan. You're absolutely correct. The 4 of them are there that we discussed. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they are in there. So Toby and I are trying to work together to make sure they get there. And that one came across my email, so I dropped it right in there right away to try to get things moving. And the gender neutral single occupancy bathroom policy is one of the ones that'll be in that list of policies for the March meeting, because it is a required policy.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. If nothing else on committees, we're up to the superintendent report.
Yep. So just wanted to put out there, the next merger study meeting is on the 22nd. That is the Monday after the February break from school. It is going to be by Zoom unless something occurs very differently in the world in the next 10 days. So I would say prepare for it to be on Zoom for the committee members, and then streamed to YouTube for the public, just like we did for the last meeting. So that's all I have about that. Just want to make sure we're always updating people who are at our board meetings when those meetings are taking place. And then at the March 8th meeting, obviously I'll provide a small recap of that meeting.
Dan, is that the last one, or is there one more after that?
There's more after that.
Yeah, there's other ones after that, I guess.
Yeah, and I sent to the board last week. I sent to the board an invitation to a joint board meeting for the Southlands Falls and Fort Edward boards to occur in June. I believe the date was June 3rd, and I think it's already posted on our website under virtual meetings. And that would be the meeting of both boards to get the presentation from the merger consultants. Yeah, I don't have a a location for that yet. I put it down as to be determined. Hopefully we'll be able to be someplace in person. We'll wait and see how the world treats us.
Yeah.
Under YouTube analytics, last time Tom had asked, and I think a few other board members had asked if there was any analytics on who's watching our meetings. I provided a report of that thanks to the help of Ryan Herman. He is the one who was navigating our YouTube channel for us and posting things there. And he provided the analytics. So there's a report in the board folder that shows you how many people watched and for how long they watched for. So you can see if they clicked on for 30 seconds and jumped off, or you can see if they watched, a good portion of the meeting. And then lastly, I forgot the COVID testing requirements. I wanted to let the board know that our community has come through in a gigantic fashion, and we have a great participation in the permission for us to test students if and when it ever becomes necessary. So thanks to the community, to the parents, and to anybody who got the word out. We really appreciate it. The way that things are going now, it seems that the governor is focusing on vaccination rather than worrying about red, yellow, and orange zones. And I don't know that we'll ever have to do the testing, but we have more than enough students to test for the first round, and we actually have enough if we were required to do a few rounds of testing as far as students and parents who have given permission for that to occur. And lastly, the Boces Connection newsletter, that's distributed a few times a year. I want to make sure that you got it. That one normally comes out at the legislative breakfast, but I wanted to share that. They always try to do a great job of showing off their programs and keeping the boards informed. So I wanted to make sure that you got that and that I mentioned it during the public session tonight too. That's what I have on there.
That's awesome. Just a quick glimpse at the YouTube analytics. We're not at the point where we could start selling ad time, but there is a good amount of people who were watching. And it's so great to see that whenever we put something up like a middle school awards ceremony or the 5th grade moving up ceremony, the numbers for that are just through the roof. And that's fantastic. So these parents are still getting to see the kids when they're doing those special events. So board meetings, not really matching up with those, but we don't expect it to. But no, it's great to see that folks are either participating in the meetings or at least they're going back and they're checking them out later on. So that's all about staying informed. So that's a great report to see.
But in a lot of ways, Tom, we were able to deliver and communicate to the public lots of different things that would not happen otherwise. If you look at some of the sports awards and some of the different ceremonies that they've had, again, they couldn't have taken place without them going on YouTube and streaming them that way. So I'm glad that we were able to push that out.
Just out of curiosity, there's that column that says impressions. What was that? Is that like were they doing like thumbs ups or something?
That's a great question. I don't know for certain, but I'm guessing that's what it means. I'd have to look at it again, Christina.
Okay.
I'm guessing that's what it means.
Yeah, but Christina, then you look at impressions click through as a percentage rate. How does that compare? You see that, right? 100% or
right,
0%?
right. So then I was just curious.
It might also be the people that it reached or something like that too. If someone shared it or something like that, it might have something to do with that. I'm not sure, but I'm sure Mr. Herman can tell us. Okay, let's see.
It's the treasurer's report. And
yes, thank you.
And the finance committee took a look at that, and I don't know if anybody has any questions about it, but Charlene's willing and able.
Any questions on the treasurer's report? If not, we'll move on to the K-12 principal report. Mr. Gallarno.
All right. For the K-12 principal report, I just want to say thank you to the teachers for the managing of the multiple informational systems and working with our students to best assess and understand their current educational and achievement for the second quarter. The second quarter report cards have been mailed out to the community, and if they're not at your home already, they should be arriving very soon. We'll be posting the student academic successes, so our honor rolls, we're going to be posting them this week on our website again, so that way people can see and and get the recognition for our kids that are achieving and doing very well. The teachers, students, and staff, they successfully completed the CBT simulation test, which was for grades 3 through 8. They also completed the iReady assessment, as well as the second quarter grades, and then final exams for any of our semester courses. Our K-12 teachers and staff also completed a training for test administration and security, which is required by New York State for all individuals that are involved in student testing. I also had the opportunity to sit in on our senior class meeting with our class advisors, Deb Delisle and Lori DeSergi, in which the senior class has continued the planning process for the end of the year activities. Although there are many questions about what will be allowed by the health department and those coordinations, we're going to continue to plan for all scenarios to ensure that our senior class is able to celebrate the great accomplishments. And the students and advisors were very upbeat and they were excited. So that was a great meeting to sit in on and just hear some different ideas that they were presenting. And then lastly, the National Honor Society held the 53rd annual induction ceremony at Fort Edward High School. The ceremony was held in the auditorium and it was without visitors, and that was due to COVID. The current members and the new inductees did an outstanding job. The advisors, Ryan Herman and Joanna Scotch, were able to record the ceremony and it will be shared with the community. And we look forward to honoring the members of the National Honor Society again during the spring. And we're really hoping that things do open up, or maybe we can do an outdoor ceremony and actually have people in attendance, and that way they can have that proper celebration. But stay tuned for that. But I just wanted to say congratulations to our new inductees, and those are Brandon Hunt, Kathleen Hunt, Linnell Colvin, Abigail Newell, and Sophia White. And I know that we'll recognize them by the board, hopefully in our next meeting. So.
Yep, great job, great kids. Awesome.
And I was, if I missed it, John, I'm sorry. Did you mention that the ceremony that we had is going to be one of those items posted on our YouTube channel at some point?
Yes, it'll be on the YouTube channel and all the social media, and I'm sure we have some pictures that we'd like to add as well and blast out there on social media. So.
I thought that was going to be, I wish your report was right after the superintendent report, so Todd could have been a perfect segue for you to say that, but we put the treasurer's report in between, my fault.
There you go. Thank you. Okay, buildings and ground report was included in our board packets. Don't know if Craig's on.
Yes, I am.
All right, Craig, you want to give us a little summary there?
Yes, sir. So we got the results back from the resampling of the lead test. 1 out of 7 came back high, which would be the third sink up in the home and careers. So we took a resampling of that faucet and fixture Friday the 5th. I had flushed the fixture prior to Needham coming in and taking the sample. So I'm hoping it probably will come back good. If not, the remediation would be, if it's in the fixture, we just replace the fixture with an American-made faucet. So that should resolve that situation. But there are 2 other sinks within that room. And then, as I mentioned in the last report, we're going to be replacing, changing the filters throughout the school on the break of winter. So that will be the 15th, I believe. And we're going to be doing snowbank removal, because one of the snowbanks over in the bus garage parking lot, if we get big storm, it's going to reduce the parking space within the facility. So the village will come up and they're willing to assist us in moving that snowbank, which is great. The past week has been a hectic with nuisance snow. Also, we were assisting Hudson Falls with some transportation issues they had with 2 of our bus drivers, which was a favor return for them helping us out a couple of years ago. And also trying to fill a bus monitor's position for a week and a half. I want to thank a lot of staff members throughout the school who stepped up to the plate and helped us accomplish that. But we got through it, and that individual is back on duty, so we're good to go. Other than that, it's okay. We're good. That concludes my report. You guys have any questions?
Just thanks for all the work you and your team are doing, and the staff that pitched in for that challenge you had. And you're doing a great job with the snow. It's been kind of crazy snow coming down, and then with cleaning the school and everything else.
Yes.
Thanks for the work you guys are doing. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Anyone have
Thank
anything
you,
for Craig. All right. Moving on to discussion items. Mr. Ward.
Yeah, so 2 items that I need some direction from the board on, and one that some board members asked to talk about some more. So the first one is the higher risk athletics, and I know you've seen a lot in the news. The news is carrying it, and all media are carrying it, whether it's social media or our print media or on the TV. So right now, Washington County has not provided clearance or guidance of how a school could have higher risk athletics. And for us in the wintertime, that's basketball. So I'll just tell you what it is. What has happened in other counties is once the county says, okay, there are some things you have to do. And one of those includes the board approving for students to participate in higher risk athletics. So later on in the agenda, I did put on a motion for you folks to consider. That being said, the decision is totally up to you. But here's what I don't want to have happen. I don't want to have next Wednesday a county approve something and say, well, yeah, we aren't going to have our next meeting for 2 more weeks. So I wanted to kind of put it up there ahead of time. Does not mean that the board should approve it. Doesn't mean they shouldn't approve it. You folks should talk about it. You can ask me any questions you want to ask about it. I've been in a lot of meetings about athletics for higher risk athletics. And this discussion will spill over into the fall too, which starts early March, and that's your volleyball and football. So at that time, I'd be asking for another motion for those sports, most likely at our March meeting. So we need to have a conversation. Let me know how you're feeling, and I'll answer any questions you might have about higher risk athletics that I can answer to help you make a better decision, or to vote the way you want to when we get to that motion on the agenda.
Yeah, obviously we have motions and we have discussions on these items before we go to a vote. I got a couple of questions though, since we are in the discussion period here. So it all comes down to the percentage, right, at the time of voting yay or nay?
So that's how some counties have handled it. Actually, I think every county so far that has said yes has tied it to a metric, at least the counties in our local area. Counties across the state have not necessarily tied it to that metric, Tom. But Saratoga and Warren have both tied it to the 4% metric. So Washington County, if they decide to do something to move forward, they could tie it to a metric like that, or they could not. But it's definitely prescribed that they should be looking at some data. And the 2 biggest ones are infection rate in the county and available beds in the region the county sits within, and we are in the capital region. So those are the 2 that have been discussed by other counties.
And is it dependent also upon the rate of your neighboring county? I know that sometimes if we're in that yellow zone, we have to do certain things. Is the athletics tied to that as well?
Right now, it's not. And the governor has taken a hiatus from declaring yellow, orange, and red zones. He's moved away from that right now. Whether he comes back or not and starts doing that again is remains to be seen. So right now, none of the approvals given by the DOHs around us have taken into consideration yellow or red zones. But that 4% metric means you're well below where you're going to be a yellow zone anyways.
Right. Another question.
I was just going to ask, Dan, do you know about how often they are calculating that metric, that 4%?
Yep, every day. So every day, and actually you say that now I have not been on today to look at it, but I've been going on every day to see where we are. So last week, actually, Washington County was going up. We were at 4.4 on Thursday and 4.6 on Friday. I did not look today, although that doesn't mean I can't look at it because I have it saved in my my bar here. But you would have to look at it every single day as a school district. So this might be part of the question you're asking. So if you're under 4% today and you're a yes, and that metric is above tomorrow, you are a no.
Right.
So
That's what I was getting at.
It starts and stops daily.
Okay.
The way that
So you could conceivably start, let's say basketball, just because that's the current season. So you could conceivably have 3 practices and have that next day be like, nope, you're done. You can't practice today because now we're over the threshold for however long, and then back and forth. So it's really like a day to day to find out games, practices, whatever. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure if we lost Dan.
Yeah, it seems like he. Oh, there he is.
I kicked myself out by mistake. Sorry.
That's okay. I was asking. So it's like a day-to-day update that the county would say schools are okay today, or nope. Is like, how is that communication happening?
Yep. So right now, here's my understanding. So I spoke with the league ADs last week a couple of times. In Warren County, that Department of Health is sending something out to the superintendents each day. Saratoga, I'm not sure exactly what's happening, but I thought that those people were required to go and take a look themselves. Either way could work as long as we were all using the same time. When Washington County superintendents talked about it, we're like, well, so do we all want to pick the same time per day? So are we going to pick 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. or what are we going to pick? And we didn't come to a decision because we don't have anything, from Washington County right now. But looking at Washington County today, we're at 4.8. So we've gone up. Our last 3 readings have gone up by 0.2 from 4.4 to 4.6 to 4.8. Where Warren County is hanging in at 3.9, and Saratoga is down to 3.0.
Yeah,
Now, Dan, let me ask you about this. So, other schools, Hudson Falls and local schools are all practicing. They've been practicing for a while. So is there a difference between competition and practice and training? And, could we, if we approve that today, are students allowed to start practicing training kind of right away? What is the timeline on that?
Yeah, so nobody in Washington County should be practicing anything because they don't have Department of Health approval to do so. You have to have Department of Health approval to do any practices that count towards the number of practices required to have a contest. What you may be talking about are schools having open gyms using the open gym rules. That is a different and distinct set of rules. But if you have open gym for, let's say, basketball, there should be no sharing of equipment, nobody within 12 feet of each other. So it isn't 3-on-3 and 5-on-5. It's people shooting foul shots or maybe doing a passing drill off the wall with themselves or a passing drill distance from each other, those types of things. So there shouldn't be practices where students are near each other. The other difference, as you know and many people know, the open gym is open to everyone. It is not team specific. Anybody who wants to attend must be allowed to attend. And those people have to submit a building request, and they have to have the appropriate insurance. Many times, most of the time in our school district, that is run by the person who is the normally appointed coach, although it's outside of the season, so possibly outside the duties of a regular coach. You would just want to be careful about open gyms occurring unless we're sure that they're actually going to be open gyms. They cannot be athletic practices. There's a lot of rules that have to be in place for social distancing and things like that, which I'm sure we could do, but they cannot be practices counting towards competitions.
So what you're saying is that, again, we would have to get below that 4% for any type of play to take place.
You'd have to have Washington County give the go-ahead with whatever metrics or information they might use, which in the other counties has been that 4% number.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, the teams that we compete with, obviously in other counties, so how does that work with scheduling? I mean, we got a game scheduled, and then somebody pops up before. Is it a forfeit? How's that? Is there a collaborative effort going on with the teams that play each other? Say, hey, we're not going to play that day or something.
Yeah. So the league met last Thursday, and we provided guidance to all the league schools. So the Adirondack League, which Fort Edward plays in, has teams from Washington County, Warren County, and Saratoga County. We gave guidance to those teams that they should play within their own counties this year, so that they don't have to look at two counties' metrics to worry about exactly what you're saying. So that if you are fortunate enough to get your county to the appropriate metric with the appropriate approvals, that all of a sudden your neighboring county, who you're going to play your big game against on Friday, doesn't pop up that morning as ineligible or on pause. So anything that we would do for the high risk sport of basketball, if and when the county gives approval, would be inside Washington County only. So we would only have to look at the Washington County metrics if Washington County includes those metrics as something required if and when they give out guidance on restarting.
Okay. And then the follow-up question to that is, and I don't know if you have this information, have other boards already or are planning in your discussions you're having with ADs and stuff, are other schools in Washington County planning on giving the green light if they go below 4?
So some boards are and have. Some boards are still discussing, and some boards have said no. They will not move forward.
Okay, gotcha.
So there's a mixture, right? I'm not trying to. That's the truth.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Dan, to go back to what you said about staying within the county. So if larger schools do not have schools to play against, would that mean would the league configuration and schedule change based on that? Would those schools want to be playing us?
Yeah. So we also said we would not bind our league schools to only play league schools within our county, because that seems unfair, right? So if the guidance from the county comes out and says you can play but only within our county, we wouldn't want to leave out. You wouldn't want to leave out Cambridge and Greenwich and Hudson Falls, right? Just by saying we're only going to play with our league schools. You three can figure something else out. So that was the conversation. The same in Warren County. You're talking about a school as large as Queensbury. They may have to have conversation with other Warren County schools, like North Warren. And I'm just picking two out of Warren County, and those would not normally be a great matchup. But when you're trying to find an opportunity for kids to participate, you have to take some of those normal things with a grain of salt, so the kids have an opportunity. And that's the conversation we've had so far. That being said, no schedules have been made whatsoever, and they won't be until we see which schools, one, see who might participate, and two, then it would be the county providing any guidance for a go-ahead.
Dan, do you know, is there a certain kind of timeline for the boards to make that decision? So if it's a no tonight or a yes tonight, is it something different for either our board or other boards? So let's say Queensbury says no tonight. Can they at their next board meeting say, yes, we're comfortable now, and
Absolutely.
vice versa?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're not bound. So right now, our league hasn't shut people out by saying you can't play if you say no now. That being said, obviously the longer it takes for a decision, the more things get rolling and the more the schedules have been made, and you'd have to try to find games maybe outside of a schedule. So independently, you call Selma and say, hey, we'd like to play girls basketball Thursday night. We know you have a game against somebody else. And we'd have to just work through that. And Lorinda does a great job. She could work through that pretty easily. She's got a great relationship with the other athletic directors in our county, in our league, and really in our region.
What's the scheduled start of the season? Is there one?
February 1.
Okay.
So
Right.
if you have Department of Health approval, board approval, and approved a return to play plan signed off by your medical director, and again, I'm talking based on what other counties have had to do. For certain, the state requires that we have the return to play plan and Department of Health approval from our local Department of Health. Then after that, the county puts the rest of the requirements onto a school district.
Okay.
Dan,
One
I've
more-
asked this question here is that, we have later on in the motion for participation of the high-risk sports of basketball, volleyball, football. What about, the following sports after that, the spring sports, which would typically start up early in March, which is only a month away. Why are we not putting that on the schedule as well to vote? Is that not a high risk?
Correct. They're not high risk, so they're good.
Okay. Good.
And the actual start date for baseball, May 2nd, I think this year. It's May 2nd or 3rd, whichever is the Sunday. I think that's May 2nd. So the baseball season starts a little later. If and when baseball and softball.
Do we have any idea of numbers, like how many kids are wanting to play?
Yeah, so Lorinda has done the signups a few times. I can tell you that our numbers are down in a couple of areas. And when I did the postings for some of the coaching positions that you see on there, for example, we're not certain based on what Lorinda's gotten for signups that we'd be able to field the varsity team, although we want to start there. But that if we can't field the varsity, we'd be looking at a JV. And I know field is a tough word. If we couldn't court, I guess, a varsity girls team, we'd ask that coach to take on the level that we could support. It doesn't look like we'd have all three levels in boys or girls basketball. We haven't gone past the signups for that other than looking at football signups a few times for other reasons. And we're a little bit farther away from that season occurring. But right now, I would speculate that we'll have a varsity or JV girls basketball team, and possibly enough for a modified. And that's part of the conversation too. Lorinda and I talked briefly about if we had 4 basketball teams and we have 1 gym, because we're not going to break down the cafeteria every day. Can we get 4 teams through that gymnasium successfully and compete in contests and things like that? And it would be pretty challenging to do so. But so the appointments that you see on there, the prospective appointments, are based on everything we think we could put out there, which would be 2 levels for the boys and 2 levels for the girls. Although we're not sure when we get ready to schedule the gymnasium, based on whatever restrictions or guidelines are put out, if we could actually make it happen when the time comes. We may have to focus on, and what other school districts have done, they focused on the varsity level only. Some school districts have definitely taken that action or plan to take that action, which is unfortunate for the younger kids. So I've left it all out there on the table for you folks at this point.
Gotcha.
Now, Dan, financially would be okay with the 2 levels for all the sports based on the recent money that was maybe given to us.
No, so those appointments would depend upon the Booster Club coming forward with the finances. So back when they released the information on the Friday before February 1st, whatever that date was, when Governor Cuomo said, "Yep, you can do it as long as your health department says so," and then he walked off for the weekend and left everybody scratching their head and scrambling a little bit. I reached out to the Booster Club and asked if they would be willing to support boys and girls basketball if and when the county says go, and if and when Fort Edward can meet all the criteria to say go. And the answer was yes.
Okay.
That being said, I don't know the exact cost yet. There's a few questions unanswered about that. So you'll see in the appointments for those coaches, it says at the end something that you don't normally see, like the superintendent will determine the start date of the appointment. If he doesn't give one in writing, the appointment is null, which basically means if I'm not able to give a go date, and I wouldn't give a go date until I knew I had the money from the Booster Club. But if I knew it was coming, I could start coaches if and when the county says yes, and then we could accept the money from the Booster Club at our next meeting. I'd be comfortable with that because I think the Booster Club has shown a great deal of good faith in providing the funds they'd said they were going to provide so far this year.
I think most of us would be willing to do a special session too, if that was anything that was needed.
Sure.
I know I would.
Yeah.
I have a few questions. Sorry. They're going to be quick, I hope. So one is, one of the things I read was the variant And I'm not sure if if the variant is in those counties, if the Department of Health is saying that's okay, or if that's another piece of the puzzle of the approval.
Right.
The second question I have is, do any of these seasons overlap? And then the third question, 3 is the best number, is I'm assuming since it's high risk, if there is a positive in the teams or the contests, everybody's going to be part of some sort of quarantine because it is high risk, right?
That's a great question, Joe, and thank you for bringing that up because I had forgotten in my long-windedness here tonight to say that. So I'm going to start with your third one because I don't remember 1 and 2 right now, but I'll remember it in a second. So you're absolutely right. The biggest difference between the counties when we talk about this are some of the quarantine guidelines that they're using. So Warren and Saratoga County are using different quarantine guidelines. So I can't speak to them. I can speak to Washington County. And the question has been asked. So if we have athletes in a gymnasium playing basketball and somebody tests positive, are we going to be required to quarantine everybody in that gymnasium? The answer is yes. In Washington County, the answer is yes. And that's an important part of the decision-making process. So I'm glad that you brought it up because that's what happens. If there's a positive, right, everybody in the gym is going to be quarantined for that 10 days. So important part of it. And that, depending on who's in the gym, and there won't be any spectators allowed, it would be coaches and student athletes. And obviously you have to have the folks who run the various clocks, and you're required to have admin supervision and likely your athletic director supervising. It could possibly close our school for a period of time, depending on how many staff are affected. And that's not in any way a scare tactic. It's just a reality, depending on who's in the room that night. So if John and I happen to both be there, not that the place can't run without us for a couple of days, but I think 10 without having somebody here could be a challenge. And again, if we had 15 student athletes who were quarantined, that could severely impact the number of students here in our high school, depending on where the positive comes from, whether it's from our school or from a visiting school. And you asked if the seasons overlap. They do slightly. I want to grab something so I can. It's only 2 feet away, but I keep it close by. So the winner, to answer your question, Joe, based on Section 2 releasing these dates, they are the governing body that controls us. Winter is February 1st to March 13th. Fall 2, which will be football and volleyball for Fort Edward, starts March 7th and ends May 1st. So that's about a 6-day overlap, if I'm doing my math right. And then spring sports, which for us would be baseball and softball this year, would be May 2nd and run through June 25th. And I can't remember question 1. I'm sorry.
That's okay. The variant, how that affects, if it's the health department that says good, even though it's here, or if that's another piece of the puzzle.
So it's the health department. That's one of the three main factors, and I don't have those in memory either. But now that you say it, the presence of the variant is one of the factors that departments of health are supposed to consider when making their decision on whether to say yes or no to high risk. And I provided some stuff on high risk in your board packets to read, so you had a little bit of background on some things from the NFHS. Other questions about that discussion topic?
Obviously, if necessary, we can have a discussion between motions. So if no one has anything right now, let's move down the agenda.
Yeah, so the second discussion item is the athletic mergers. As you can see later on in the agenda, there's a motion on there that I have recommended to the board. I'm happy to talk about that process for that merger and the process for any other mergers. As you know, this year we've got fewer mergers because one of our partners, and then likewise, we decided that we would not be merging for our winter sports, the winter sport of bowling, because of COVID concerns and commingling school districts.
So I was definitely interested in discussing the merger. I'm kind of in the line with Carrie, who spoke earlier, obviously about wondering how that district specifically is on for the motion today, given what I know to have happened in the athletic committee meeting.
Yep, sure. So I'll give a short recap of the athletic committee meeting, Christina, and you can correct me. We were both there. My omission will not be on purpose. So we had an athletic committee meeting where there was several topics that day, or that evening, or late afternoon. And the last topic on it was, I believe it was the last topic was a football merger. But we had a few other topics on that we talked about before, and I don't have the agenda in front of me from that meeting. During that, we talked about a few different possibilities for merge partners, and by the end, we had a lot of conversation there. So by the end, we came up with a preferred list. I would say prioritized list, prioritized, preferred, whichever word you want to use, list. And I was asked to reach out to those school districts and have a conversation with the leadership of those school districts, which I did. After having initial conversations about their interest level, there were two that I scheduled meetings that Tom and I both attended with their leadership. And in one case, there was leadership and an athletic director and I believe a coach there, but also board members, board presidents to be exact. After those two meetings, I had a conversation with Tom about my thoughts and about how the meetings went and about some of the items that were discussed in the meeting. And the recommendation at that time from me to the board, at this time from me to the board, is Southlands Falls. That's the totality of it. There certainly has been some conversations in executive session about the impact of athletic mergers on employees and the specific negotiation between the two school districts and what we wanted to see possibly included in that or not included in that. But that's what I have for the process.
So you're saying that of the four districts that the athletic committee put forward, that two of them were not interested?
Actually, two were not interested unless we knew it was going to be them without any further discussion. And actually, I can go a little further to say that even three of them were not interested unless they were the one without any further discussion.
Okay, I'm just trying to.
That's I get it. It's yeah, I get it.
It simply comes down to conversations that were had with multiple schools. The conversations gave us an impression on how it would be best for our kids. One of them stood out as one that is a great move for us. We can, we're talking about negotiations here, so it's a little bit difficult to talk directly about anything.
So I'm a little bit confused on that point, maybe a little bit as well. Mm-hmm. So what exactly is negotiated?
Well, how many teachers are going to be involved in the merger, the logistics of certain things like that. And again, more than one actually looked at us cross-eyed and said, why are you guys talking to us? Because it didn't make sense to them given some circumstances that we're currently involved in. So based on those talks, it seemed like there was really one clear way for us to go. And if you recall, there's other things that happen in executive session that you were privileged to that
was the previous meeting. And then during the athletic committee meeting, there was a lot of feedback from all the people involved. And so the turnaround to me was very curious because I was not able to attend that that meeting. So I don't know what was said during that executive session, but I think that I've been approached. I mean, we're all representatives of the community, and I've been approached by quite a few members of the community that are concerned with this process as it compares to past precedent of mergers and how they went along. So, and I can understand their concern.
What's the concern as far as
that it was recommended by the athletic committee to be a completely different number one choice than the choice that we have the motion on today.
Yeah, well, as far as that goes, there was discussion prior to that athletic committee, which you may recall. The other is the way again, it comes down to us to make the best decision for our kids, right? And as Dan said, we met with other schools and we thanked every single one of them for showing interest in giving our kids an opportunity to play if something else didn't go out. One of the schools we talked to had a preferred school to merge with, and it wasn't us. So if the other school came through, we'd have been left in the weeds anyway. So there's a lot of things that happen when you talk about negotiations, but at the end of the day, the school that we elected to go to was great conversation, great opportunity for our kids, and that's why it's on the docket tonight.
Right, and I agree that obviously we want to give the kids an opportunity to play, and that's first and foremost. But my concern is that the community folks that have reached out to me have said that they're both concerned that there was no community input, essentially, to it, and with the district that it is. I mean, given the fact that we're in a full merger study with this district, that sends, intentional or unintentional, sends a message to the community.
Well, I may bring your memory to that athletic committee that you were at and I wasn't, but there was a member of that committee, not a member of the committee, but a person who was present at the committee that said they wouldn't want to merge with South Glens Falls because they don't want anything to work out positively that might lend to the merger being a positive experience. That was said by someone at that committee. So
That's not something that I recall. That's not something that I recall. And if somebody said that was said, that's a possibility, but that's not something that I recall.
All right. Well, I do recall that. So Tom, I'll back you up on that.
Okay. So when you have those kind of sentiments being said, again, I don't know if the purity of decisions is made on what's best for kids or what's best for other interests. So I think, again, based on the conversations we had and discussions that this board had, that's why it's on the docket tonight. And it comes down to a vote, right? So that's why it's on the docket.
So, Tom, I want to say at least one more thing, if you'll indulge me.
Yeah.
So Christina, I spent some time thinking about the question that you just asked. And here's the question I think you just asked. Why was it different than a conversation had a few years ago? Right. Why was the process different? And
right.
And this is totally me talking after somebody asked me that question. And one of the biggest differences is a couple of years ago, we were making a decision whether we would merge football or try to make a team run that was Fort Edward only. And there was more to the conversation than that. But we had the possibility in the back of our mind, based on me talking with the coaching staff, that we might be able to make it run just Fort Edward football. That did not exist this time, based on the numbers and the possibilities given to me by the coaching staff, that there is, without a merger partner next year, there will be no
Kids
Fort
not
Edward.
playing. Correct.
Right. And that's one of the biggest differences, and that's just one of the biggest differences from the first time. But I understand the question, and I get what I understand the concern people are bringing forward. So I don't want you to think that's not lost on me. And I wanted to make sure I came out and said that publicly.
So it's not apples to apples, essentially.
Well, and I get people questioning the difference in the process. I understand that.
Right.
Gotcha.
And I know that, I was elected here by the community, and when I have so many people like blowing up my phone and calling me and saying things, then these are things I'm going to bring up, and I agree. So, like you said, it comes down to the vote, I guess.
It's unfortunate that you weren't at the last exec either, because you would have had a little bit more background on what was going on. So again, it's just that's why it's on the docket. Any other discussion on this before we move further? Okay. Consent agenda. I need a motion for consent agenda items A through D.
I'll make a motion, Tom.
I got Chris and Todd. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're all good?
Oh, so I forgot to bring it up. At 7:15, I had Anita Tripp come in by telephone. Anita, are you still there? Just want to make sure we're getting our votes right. I don't know if she was in and had to go again or not. Toby, can you see if Anita's there?
I don't see her.
Okay, and I see one telephone ending in 53, and I don't know that to be hers.
Right, that's the
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can
Oh,
hear you
yeah.
now. Just want to make sure.
Okay.
And Ella came in at 6:37, but folks probably got that one. And I just want to make sure James Donahue's not out there someplace. So no James. All right, sorry about to interrupt you guys. I just want to make sure we've got it right.
So we have all ayes there. There's no nays on that one, right?
So that should be 8-0, Toby.
Yes.
And who is the motion in the second? Chris and
Todd.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. Okay, action items. Need a motion for action item A, motion to approve the CSE, CPSE recommendations as included in the board packets. Need a motion.
Motion.
Joe and sound like Anita. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're all good. We have a motion, item C, motion to approve the contract with Standard Medical Testing Services, a division of Mountain Medical, to provide required medical screenings for specific employees. I need a motion. Dan and Ella, I think, yeah. Any discussion on that one? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everyone's good. Okay, we're good. Motion to approve the contract with Washington County Board of Elections to provide as needed voting machines and elections operation support to the Fort Edward School. Need a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Todd and Joe, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and those contracts were included in the board package if you guys want to look at it. Let's see. Motion to approve the contract with Saratoga Springs Central School District to provide medical services for specific individuals. Need a motion.
Motion.
Was that Anita and Chris?
Mm-hmm.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All good. Okay. Motion to approve the board resolution authorization to participate in the cooperative purchasing program coordinated by Washington, Saratoga, Warren, Hamilton, Essex Counties, Boces for the bids awarded in the 2021-2022 school year. Need a motion.
Motion.
Chris
Second.
and Dan, we've been a part of this for a while, right? Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All good.
Who'd you get on that? I
Joe,
heard
second.
Dan and Joe.
Dan and Joe, yeah.
Got it.
Motion to approve the participation of Fort Edward students in the higher risk athletic activities of basketball, volleyball, and football for the 2020-2021 school year in accordance with Washington County regulations and guidance if and when the approval is given by Washington County.
Motion.
So I need a motion, folks. Todd.
Motion.
So Todd and Dan, the motion's on the floor. Any further discussion on this topic? I have one question, Dan. I don't know if we asked before, but obviously we talked about the expense of this being included. And thank you very much to the Booster Club for stepping up once again to help out our students. The ancillary costs here, as far as like someone's going to have to wipe down and disinfect the equipment and the gym and any other type of things like that. I mean, is there a way of putting a dollar amount on that? Is that something the Booster Club is going to also contribute to?
No, so we are able to do that through the cooperation of we're hoping through the cooperation of our coaches and student athletes with our normal cleaning crew. So that's got to be part of it. Everybody's got to work together to make this happen if and when we get the opportunity.
Okay, great answer. That's good. Okay, motions are on the floor. I need yay or nay. All in favor?
Aye.
Is that everyone, or any nays to this?
Nay.
Joe's a nay.
I'm
Okay.
also.
Anita's a nay, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got 6-2. Okay. All righty. Let's see. Motion to approve a football merger for all levels between the Fort Edward Union Free School District and South Glens Falls School District for the 2021-2022 school year. So I need a motion. I don't know if it's best to do a roll call here.
Let's do a roll call for this one.
Roll call, yes. All right. So Anita.
Yes.
Okay. Christina.
No.
Ella.
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Christopher.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
Dan.
No.
Am I missing anyone except for myself? I'm a yay. I think I got everyone.
That's 8.
So it passes 5.
Motion.
I'm sorry?
No.
There was no motion on the table.
What do you mean there's no motion on the table?
You didn't get a motion or a second, Tom? Toby, is that right?
That's correct. You need a motion.
Okay, so.
Got to get somebody to move it, Tom. We got
I
to
need a
vote.
mo- Yeah, I need a motion.
Motion.
Anita and Joe. We'll go through the roll call again. Any discussion before we vote? No. Okay, we'll go through the roll call again. I think I started with Anita,
Yes.
Christina,
No.
Ella,
Yes.
Joseph,
Yeah.
Chris,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Dan.
No.
I'm a yay. Did I miss anyone?
That's it. You got them all.
Okay. So Dan, tally.
It's 6-2. Motion passes. Dan Shields and Christina Durkee dissented, and Ella, Joe, Anita, Chris, Todd, and Tom were yays.
Okay. So passed. Thank you, folks, for the vote. Let's see. Moving on to personnel. Need a motion to accept with thanks and gratitude for exemplary service to the Fort Edward School District, the letter of resignation effective June 30, 2021, for the purpose of retirement from Keith Majeka, 25 years of service. Need a motion?
Motion.
Chris and Christina, any discussion other than to say, wow, thank you for so much great service. It's been a pleasure having you on in our district for sure.
And I'll just add quickly, if you get a chance, go back and read that letter. I think it's a very powerful letter that he wrote.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for providing services for our kids, Keith. Appreciate it.
I have a very personal family connection to Keith with my son, and he will be very sorely missed.
Yep, me too. Thank you.
Wish you the best.
Maybe we can hire him out of retirement.
That'd be great.
That'd be nice.
All right, great. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
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 Got a motion. Okay. Well, good. Okay. Motion to appoint Lisa Corlew using applicable grants, donations, and CARES Act funding as teacher mentor for a specific individual effective February 22nd, 2021 through June 30th, 2021, with a stipend per the FETA contract. The stipend will be prorated to reflect the February 22nd, 2021 start date. Need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Todd and Dan, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
good? All right, perfect. Okay. All right, item C is a resolution. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of Fort Edward Union Free School District hereby accepts the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Phyllis Cleveland to a 3-year probationary appointment as a 1.0 FTE teacher of special education in the special education tenure area, commencing February 22nd, 2021, and ending February 22nd, 2024, contingent upon compliance with the requirements of education law. Ms. Cleveland holds a permanent certificate in the special education. Ms. Cleveland is appointed at a starting salary of $53,542, current MA Step 8 of the FETA contract, with all of the benefits and salary reductions per the FETA contract and effective MOAs, pending the receipt and review of all official transcripts and required employment paperwork. All salary and benefits will be prorated to reflect a February 22, 2021 start date. Need a motion.
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 Dan and Anita, any discussion?
I just want to, Tom, I think when you read it, you might have said her probation ended February 22nd. It's correct in writing. It's the probation ends one day before, so it'd be February 21st, 2024.
Okay, so corrected. So the tenure, the area is February 22nd to 2021 and ending February 21st, 2024. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All good? Okay. Motion to approve unpaid leave from the position of teaching assistant to Samantha Carroll through June 30th, 2021. I need a motion.
Motion.
Chris and Anita, any discussion?
I just want to say, if we're going to have discussion, please, you might want to hold it till executive session unless it's a very distinct question.
Understood. All right, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Joe, you're abstaining, right?
Abstain, yes. Thank you.
One
So,
abstention.
nobody, so I got 7 yes, 0 opposed, and 1 abstention.
Correct.
Okay.
Motion to approve Stuart Alheim to the position of varsity boys basketball coach for 2020-2021 school year. Rate of salary is negotiated with the FETA using available donations. The effective date of the appointment shall be set by the superintendent and communicated to the employee in writing if and when approval to participate is received from Washington County. The superintendent does not set an effective date. The BOE appointment shall be considered null. I need a motion.
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 Chris and Christina, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No, any abstain? Okay. Let's see. Motion to appoint Jeff Tully to the position of varsity girls basketball coach for the 2020-2021 school year at a rate of salary as negotiated with the FETA using available donations. The effective date of the appointment shall be set by the superintendent and communicated to the employee in writing if and when approval to participate is received from Washington County. The superintendent does not set an effective date. The Board of Education appointment shall be considered null. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Todd and Christina, any discussion?
I have a question.
Yeah.
It looks like later on he's also for football, and does that overlap? And how would that work?
Joe's bringing me back to my sheet on that.
6 days. Yeah.
Yeah, so it does overlap, and I don't know exactly how that would work. But we would certainly make sure the students were appropriately supervised for both sports. I do have a person who's expressed interest to be the assistant coach for the football team if and when that sport is given approval. The reason why I only put on the varsity coaches for the high-risk Fall 2 sports is because the start date for the season is the 7th and our board meeting is the 8th. So I figured we could appoint the rest of the coaching staffs on the 8th if need be. But if we have to, we could have a special session if we needed somebody to cover that position for a few days.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Joe? Did I get it right? That makes sense?
Yeah, I got you. Thank you.
Logistically, Dan, well, the board will decide if it's best to table the other one or not, but we'll finish here. So as far as this appointment goes, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. No names, right? Okay, so we're all good. Motion to appoint John Boucher to the position of modified boys basketball coach for the 2020-2021 school year at a rate of salary as negotiated with the FETA using available donations. The effective date of the appointment shall be set by the superintendent, communicated to the employee in writing if and when approval to participate is received from Washington County. If the superintendent does not set an effective date, the appointment shall be considered null. I need a motion.
Motion.
Chris and Dan, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good.
Aye.
We're good. Motion to appoint Paige Toomey to the position of modified girls basketball coach for the 2020-2021 school year at a rate of salary as negotiated with the FETA using available donations. The effective date of the appointment shall be set by the superintendent, communicated to the employee in writing if and when approval to participate is received from Washington County. If the superintendent does not set an effective date, the appointment shall be considered null. Need a motion.
Motion.
Dan Shields.
Motion.
Christina. Any discussion? Todd, I saw your hand, but I saw it a little
I was
late.
making a motion. I'll lower it.
You got to get quick. A little late on the buzzer there. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion to appoint Christina Durkee to the position of varsity girls volleyball coach for the 2020-21 school year as an unpaid volunteer. The effective date of the appointment shall be set by the superintendent, communicated to Christina in writing if and when approval to participate is received from Washington County. Superintendent does not set an effective date. The appointment shall be considered null.
Motion.
Dan.
Second.
Todd. Saw your hand up there quick, Todd, that time.
That'd be
Any
good.
discussion?
Thank you, Christina.
Yeah, thanks for stepping up, Christina,
Wow.
especially as being an unpaid volunteer. We all know that.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Enthusiastic, yes.
Aye.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay.
And Christina
I'm
is,
abstaining. I'm
Very good.
abstaining.
thank you.
Christina's abstaining. Absolutely, yes. Motion to appoint Jeff Tully to the position of 2020-2021 school year. The rate of salary is negotiated with the FETA using available donations. The effective date of the appointment shall be set by the superintendent, communicated to the employee in writing if or when approval to participate is received from Washington County. If the superintendent does not set an effective date, the BOE appointment shall be considered null.
Motion.
There's a motion. Okay, so the motion from Chris and Christina. Any discussion? Obviously, that 6-day gap, Dan, will be something you guys work on to.
Yeah,
to
so
allow for-
normally those practices would take place at different times possibly, and hopefully one indoors, obvious for basketball, and one outdoors for football if the weather allows. So I think it'll be pretty easy for us to take care of it.
Great. Okay. So no
we-
further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everyone
Aye.
good? Okay, we're all good. All right. Let's see. Okay, at this point, we
Oh, we got one more. Keith Majeka.
Can't forget golf.
Motion to appoint Keith Majeka
Oh,
to
I'm sorry, I skipped it. Sorry. Motion to appoint Keith Majeka to the position of varsity golf coach for the 2020-2021 school year. The rate of salary is negotiated with the FETA using available donations. Effective date of the appointment shall be set by the superintendent and communicated to the employee in writing if and when approval to participate is approved. The superintendent does not set an effective date. The appointment shall be considered null. Need a vote. Need a motion.
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 Joe and Ella. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We're all good?
Aye.
We're all good. Okay. Now, second public comment period. Toby, were you aware of any comments?
Yes, Amanda Durkee.
Okay. Floor recognizes Ms. Durkee.
Hi, I don't want to beat a dead horse because I know that there was discussion previously about the South Glens Falls football merger. And just so we're clear, I don't have skin in the game as far as my own son is only in kindergarten. My concern is I attend these meetings regularly, as you know, and my concern is the lack of public discussion that occurred about it. I just do not, and whoever gets the merge occurs with. I just do not understand why this was all done like secretively executive session. Why was the discussion in executive session? I've heard the word negotiation said, and I don't think it's negotiations. There's sports merger things have been discussed publicly at Board of Ed meetings before. That's the piece that I just don't understand. There was why it wasn't discussed amongst you Board of Ed members. You guys, I want to hear your discussion. I want to hear the conversation that you had at various districts. I don't understand. When I look at the Fort Edward policy manual online, I went to see if I was missing something with what executive session means. I read it. I still don't see how a football sports merger is executive session material. That's my issue.
Well, we appreciate your opinion. It was discussed. It was discussed publicly this evening, and it was voted on publicly this evening. So that's where we're at. Mergers with sports, with teams like we've done a million of them before. They're not necessarily contingent upon public input. It's a decision that's made at the board level with communication between the superintendent, sometimes ADs, and then other people. So again, it's all about the best interest of our kid. I know you say you don't have skin in the game. I do believe that you do have skin in the game. So just in talking about transparency, I think you do when it comes to football. But that's we talked about it publicly this evening. We do have discussions. Quite frankly, in our situation, some of the places we talked to would rather have not even been considered. So that's what it is. We made a vote tonight, and that's where we're going to go. And again, despite anything else people talk about, with the knowledge of the discussions we had, this board has been really good in making the best decisions for kids. South Glens Falls, given all of our options, is the best option for kids.
Okay, I will say two things. First thing is, I feel that at the last Board of Education meeting, when there was an opportunity for a summary about athletic committee meeting or something along those lines, anything could have been provided at that point as an update. The only thing that was stated was we had a meeting, we'll discuss further in executive session. I think there could have been an update there. That's thing number one. Thing number two, as far as skin in the game, what you're referencing is the fact that my husband coaches football. Yes, my husband coaches football. That for me is not a big deal. Okay. My husband coaches because he chooses to coach, not because I, as a wife, ask him to coach or expect him to coach. I am concerned about my friends who have kids who probably will not play football now because it's quite intimidating to play for Class A when we had a Class C school on the table potentially. I just think that the whole thing went down fairly shady.
Again, thank you for your opinion, Amanda, and we do appreciate your participation on our board meetings. Absolutely. So I need a motion to enter into executive session to discuss matters referring to negotiations with specific entity.
Make the motion.
Todd and Joe. I have to read this before we get a vote. Board of Education members and other individuals invited to executive session are reminded that all matters discussed during executive session must be kept in the strictest confidence. All in favor?
Aye.
We all good?
So
Will you call me?
Yeah, for the folks out there, from the public, there's no action scheduled for after executive session. We will stop the recording to go into executive session. We'll come back out and rejoin this meeting again to adjourn the meeting. But I don't expect there to be any action after executive session. That being said, I don't control what the board wants to take for action after the executive session. Board members, do you need Mr. Galarno or Mrs. Petro-Durgan for executive session or beyond?
No.
No, thank you for your time.
No. So John and Charlene, have a great night. And I will send everybody an executive session link in just a moment. And I'm going to stop the Tom needs a motion.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Joe.
I got Joe and Dan.
Joe and Dan. Yes, Dan had his hand up there. You're a little slow, Anita. All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Folks, thanks again for all the work tonight. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, have a good night.
Have a good night,
Good
everybody.
night.
Thank you.